It's that time again. Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Happy midweek. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Next Gen Live. I'm Rory Sauter. Joining me is George Landreth. We have Greg Merck. We have Tony Rodriguez. We have Bill Muckler. We have Jim Atrosky, Brian Perez. Big show tonight, gentlemen. Lot going on, lot to address, lot to establish, headline after headline. Wow. Merck, I want you to start. Give us the rundown, give us the 411. What are you directing your focus towards?
Well, obviously on the domestic front, the decision of the Colorado Supreme Court for Donald Trump, which I expect to be overturned. Nevertheless, it's emboldening other blue states to challenge the Trump on the ballot. Obviously, we see this as much of the deep state and the progressive movement to deny voters their opportunity to vote for Donald Trump because they know Joe Biden can't beat him fair and square, so they have to remove him from the ballot. And on the international front, I'll tell you, China is showing more signs of a failing economy. The real estate is imploding. And what most people don't realize is the 5% decline in the Chinese real estate is about $2.7 trillion in U.S. money taken out of their wealth. And when 70% of their wealth is tied up in real estate, that is substantial, particularly because a number of the cities, the larger cities, have seen 15 to 25% declines. There's real estate declines across the market, and all due to government intervention. The Chinese government, of course, communist government, controls prices, controls money, controls the expansion of the money supply, and they've done exactly what the federal government has done in our country, which is destroy the free market's ability to dictate what happens in markets. And anytime the government gets involved in these kind of things, the problems, the swings, the volatility, the extreme highs and the extreme lows become even more extreme, and that will have contagion effect in the United States. So not good news for the U.S. economy, not good news for the Chinese economy, which means even worse news for the global economy.
Jim Atrosky.
Well, glad to be back. I've been kind of busy. I was out sick for a couple of days. I've read the insurrection part of the Colorado decision, and we can get into that, in some detail. It's bullshit. And I'm working on a project which I call GOPscorecard.com, which we can get into in detail. But I came up with a pretty simple way to score whether the Republican Party has fulfilled its promise of making government smaller. They've had the House for a year. I know they don't have the Senate or the White House, but the House is pretty powerful. And I broke it down into spending, debt, number of agencies, number of employees, number of troops overseas. So far as I can tell, they failed on all five, or all five have stayed the same. So another big fail vote for the GOP. But I think what's different is I have some metrics, and that's new, and I'm going to roll it out on January 1st after everybody recovers from a hangover, but before the 5 p.m. College football playoff. So that's what I'm working on at the moment.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. George Landreth, what's going on, man? We haven't talked to you in a while.
Well, I've been kind of following this crazy. I used to teach constitutional law, so I've gotten a real, just makes my head hurt when I read the opinion out of Colorado. It's bad history. It's bad constitutional law. It's absurd. And what's interesting is someone could say, oh, well, you just say that because you're a conservative. And I'm thinking to myself, well, actually, Jonathan Turley is a Democrat, and he's written some pretty scathing critiques of this. And he points out that it's absolutely absurd and that it's bad law and that it's putting America down a path that is one of the worst paths that any court has sent us down in a very, very long time. So it's a pretty rough, critique by a guy who comes from the left. And so my point is, when you look at this case, it's just kind of, I feel like Winnie the Pooh. who once said, the more I looked, the more it wasn't there. And that's kind of the way this case is. The more you look, the more there's no there. It's just garbage. And I would argue this case is so, I mean, I don't normally argue that a judge who gives an opinion that I don't like should be disbarred or removed from office simply for authoring an opinion with which I disagree, or I can come up with an alternative explanation as to why they're wrong. Even if I'm pretty confident that I could convince a panel of 10 or 20 judges that I'm right, it doesn't mean that every time that happens, that judge needs to be removed from office. But this is so outlandishly insane. The scholarship so ridiculously absurd. The reading of the Constitution so just outlandishly adrift, that these people are not worthy of being members of the bar. Because if you're a member of the bar, you take an oath to uphold the Constitution. And then, of course, if you're a judge, you do too, even more so. And they violated that, just horribly. And so my view would be they ought to all be removed from office. They all ought to be disbarred. And I would argue because they've used their power to violate the constitutional rights of over 6 million Coloradans, that's a federal crime. When you use the federal power or the state power that you've been given and misuse it to violate the constitutional rights of others, you can actually go to jail for that. And I recommend that these 4 justices spend a very long time in orange jumpsuits in jail. And I wouldn't normally say that, but just because I disagree. There's a lot of opinions I've read that I disagree with, but this one's insane.
It looks like we lost Rory. So if you